Well, at this particular point, I am ready for some good news when it comes to Xbox. Unfortunately, that's not what we have here. We have a little bit of, kind of a negative side of things. And this was going to be a negative impact regardless of what happened recently. And my only hope is that Microsoft can figure out a way to kind of offset this stuff, because you're already starting to see people go, oh, well, I'm going to possibly skip out on this, or maybe not get any console next time or whatever. So I think that's something that Microsoft desperately wants to avoid. And just as a gaming fan, I hope that they can kind of pull that off. I would like to see that happen. But according to this anyway, listen, with the rise of prices in Game Pass, which I think Game Pass is still a pretty good deal, right? Like if they start coming out with a game every quarter like they promised, I think that could really work out well for them. I think the main problem that we're going to start seeing right now is here we are 7 months into this year, and we don't even have, I think, any release dates for anything coming the rest of the year. Now, yes, there are games that are going to be coming out the rest of the year, supposedly maybe in November and December, but that means, basically for most of the year, pretty much nothing in terms of first party support, which is a real shame. And prices jumping already up to $20. That's, to me, crazy, and I think that it's not even crazy to think that that could jump another $5 in another year or two. So according to analysts, they're saying that Xbox Game Pass hikes were inevitable, and it's going to happen again, and that they could even get an ad tier. Can you imagine an ad tier thrown into the mix? There's already like 3-4 tiers, right? And then you throw in an ad tier. That would be crazy. So last week, Microsoft announced some big changes for Game Pass, including price increases across all tiers. It all continues to feel like a messy mix-up, especially considering the lack of proper communication from the team on all the changes involved. However, analysts who have looked at the move say price hikes were inevitable, and they think that the service isn't done changing and evolving yet. So over at IGN, the team put together an extensive look at the Game Pass changes with input from various gaming analysts on why this happened and what comes next. One analyst group thinks that Microsoft price bumps were inevitable in order to increase average revenue per user, especially when Call of Duty come into Xbox Game Pass soon, which again, we all kind of figured that, that was going to be the reason why, this is one of the things that is kind of happening. But at the same point, obviously things are changing quite a bit, and we're going to have to wait and see if that pans out for Microsoft at all. But, analysts tend to be right with this stuff. Obviously Call of Duty possibly losing out on sales is a big reason why they would have to make more money, and they're kind of buckling down, which you kind of understand. But it's like, you allow something to go on for so many years, then you kind of risk pissing off the fan base, and I think that's some of what happened here. So anyway, elsewhere, certain folks think that Microsoft removing some day one Game Passes from lower tiers is an attempt to push players towards Game Pass Ultimate, the team's higher tier. Ampere Analysis reckons almost 75% current subscribers have Ultimate, meaning over a quarter of Game Pass users are there and waiting to be convinced by Microsoft's Game Pass Ultimate tier. Finally, an ad-supported tier has also come up in the conversation, and Persic Gaming analyst thinks that it's a pretty big shift towards a cheaper Game Pass tier with adverts in the near future, and here's what he had to say. There will be 3 phases roughly. Initially, I expect ads to show up as banner ads inside of Xbox and Game Pass menus. Mostly as a test case, it will start slow. However, once Microsoft develops the capabilities over the next few years, I anticipate ads during loading screens, for instance, as a second phase. Finally, and assuming that this works out well for its ecosystem, Microsoft is likely to make an acquisition in this ad tech space to acquire the capability to both facilitate programming ads and a centralized inventory using existing and industry metrics and tool sets. The last component is obviously the furthest out. So can you imagine you get some ads for loading screens? I mean, does this negate a little bit of what he's saying? Because most games, well, at least a lot of games anyway, and especially in the future, I can't imagine them having loading screens, right? I mean, it's rare to even have that these days. So I don't know if this guy exactly knows what he's talking about 100%. I'm not saying that he's wrong with the ads, because we've seen some things come up, but those were ways to input ads into the games themselves, like on a billboard or something along those lines. So and I do agree, you could see banner ads in the Game Pass menus, something like that. if they're trying to access like the people that are used to playing on phones and things like that, you can see them maybe doing some ads like that on a free tier or an ad tier or whatever. But I can't imagine that going over very well with the console gamer as a whole. So I don't know. We'll see. As always is the case with analysts such as these, it's obviously just opinions based on experience, data, but that doesn't mean that they're all going to happen. Anyway, the full IGN piece is worth a read, and they've gathered up plenty of information on some of this, and it is like an interesting kind of concept and read anyway. So if kind of you're wondering why we got so many price increases anyway, the reasons why, it's basically had to do a lot with the evolved way that gamers are playing games, and you also have like the inflation and stuff like that. So it is something that we have to kind of pay attention to. The cost of making and releasing games has increased significantly, and Xbox wants to make money. It's pretty plain and simple, to be honest with you. Xbox needs its subscribers to pay more to offset the cost of licensing games, generally, as well as the cost of adding significant annual premium release to Game Pass, which is Call of Duty. I mean, if you look at it, it's like Call of Duty's fault for all of this stuff. So we'll kind of see what happens with this. But, you know, again, I do think that we're going to probably see something raised again pretty soon. So according to Harding Rolls, as well as other that they've spoken to, they have reportedly pointed out that Xbox's position with Game Pass subscriber numbers have leveled off at a small volume that Xbox hoped. As Matt Priscatella says, the subscription market in general has flattened in the past few years. U.S. spending on video game subscription services is down slightly year to year in 2024 compared to a year ago, and cloud gaming subscription offerings have not been met with exuberance from players. As a result, Xbox, which went hard on subscription business in a way its competitors did not, must make changes if it wants to meet its long-term goals, but there's also a limited number of possible changes it's capable of making in the scenario. When you have to increase revenue, you only have a couple of levers. When it comes to Game Pass, it's either volume or yield. So you have to think about that as well when it comes to this. Now, again, this is something that they're going to see. Like, they're going to see people quit. You know, like me. I do not plan on being a part of Game Pass long term when this kind of runs out at a particular point. You know, like at some point it will run out, and I don't think that I will ever resubscribe unless it's something that really looks interesting to me. So again, that's on Microsoft. You know, they're the ones that are going to have to see this, because I think, like, for the most part, when we see Xbox stuff, most of it is not looking amazing or whatever. I'm just being honest. Like, a lot of it does not look amazing to me. Some of it looks average. Some of it I'm interested in, but it doesn't mean that like everybody else will be as well. So we'll see what happens when and how that kind of changes the future of it. But can you imagine paying $25 a month? Which, again, this is where this is headed. At some point, Game Pass is going to be $25 a month, right? So, I mean, you can think about that any way you want. I guess like people are going to have to really consider what they want to do at that particular point, because I feel like not owning stuff is kind of a really crappy thing. At the end of the day, I like to own things. So will people really want to pay $300 a year for Game Pass? I mean, at that point, you're kind of splitting hairs with what you want to own. I mean, if you really are enjoying some of that stuff, then yeah. But for me, I'm not an indie guy. So, I mean, there's occasionally some kind of indie games that I enjoy, but for the most part, I like to play the big AAA games, and there's not too many of them that go in there day one outside of the Xbox stuff. And then even that, it's like, are people really losing their shit over Avowed or Indiana Jones or Hellblade 2? Like, it doesn't seem like it. And I have a feeling that stuff like Indiana Jones is going to be like $30 to buy, a few months after sale, and I think Avowed is going to be the same kind of way. So I don't really look at that as some like huge deal to me. I don't mind waiting a little bit to pick up some of these games, but we'll see how it works out. But for right now, I can't imagine, like people defending the constant price raising is a little bit crazy at the end of the day. But let me know how you guys feel. I will link this. It is definitely worth a read. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, let me know how you feel about it. Because at the end of the day, it really comes down to what the people like you and me want. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a very interesting time in the future, though. Maybe some people quit. We'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. I'm Crab Gamer. This is Crab Gamer Reviews. If you guys enjoy the content, leave a like, and we'll catch you next time.